Okay, we are now recording. I would like to introduce our speaker today, Raj Iyer. Just note this portion of the talk will be recorded and distributed. He has over 20 years of collegiate teaching experience in the US and India, including Eastern Florida State, IIT Delhi, and colleges in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's done courses on critical thinking and creative thinking, perspectives on knowledge, philosophy of religion, theory and practice of engineering ethics, and many other philosophy courses. Raj, I thank you for speaking with us today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And thank you for joining us all the way from India. Please unmute. Make sure you unmute. We can't hear you. There you go.
Yes. No, I'd like to greet each and all of you with a very warm namaste. Also, shalom, salam, peace be with you. Every greeting in every language that suggests that we are really more together than we think. We focus on the separations, and there really might be an underlying unity beneath all the differences. I'd like to say that this virtual cocoon, coming together in Zoom meetings is better than nothing. Obviously, I'd prefer to be with you face to face, in that pulpit in West Melbourne. But alas, that cannot be till the COVID pandemic kind of settles a little more. Hopefully next year, I'll be able to see some of you in person. But till then, this is the second best. And it's not a bad next best. So it gives me great pleasure and joy to be with you again. I'd like to say that Taoism, fits in with the words that we heard about becoming like a tree, wiggling our toes, and so on and so forth. That was a very Taoist message of inspiration. Now, why do I say Tao? Because even though it's written in English as T-A-O, it's pronounced like Dow Jones. So it's really pronounced Taoism or Tao. And it's a very ancient Chinese philosophy. There may have been folk versions of Taoism dating back for millennia. But we know that by the 6th century BCE, Taoism was hatching. And by the 4th century BCE, most of the Taoist texts that we now recognize, including the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi, were in place. So this is a religion that's really not a religion. This is a religion that humanists and Darwinians can embrace gladly. A religion that is congenial to Buddhists as well, because it's not a religion that subscribes to a personal God. Now, later Taoism went into magical rituals and many gods and many spirits and nature spirits and so forth. But when you look at the primal roots of Taoism, you find a religion that's really a form of nature spirituality, which urges us to be one with the environment, which urges us to let go of our misgivings and our constant thought chatter and to move closer to nature and to become one with it. So, the Tao Te Ching, which is the original Taoist classic, was supposedly penned by a man named Lao Tzu. The very name Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu means ancient baby. And Chinese legend has it that he spent 80 years in his mother's womb. Poor woman, 9 months is bad enough. 80 years. But the whole idea is that he was born wise. He was born with the innocence of a child and the wisdom stereotypically associated with extreme old age. He begins the Tao Te Ching, or he or whoever wrote the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Taoism emphasizes that there's a great mystery that lies at the heart of things. Not everything is obvious, not everything is explicable scientifically, rationally, or empirically. Uh, there is a force, if you like, that is beyond all words. It's beyond all description. It's beyond all uh, attempts at grasping it or verbalizing it. And we sense that sometimes. I mean, you're sitting on, let's say, an isolated corner of the beach, and seagulls flash past. It's a gorgeous sunset. The sky streaked with occasional clouds and with all these bright oranges and reds and magentas as the sun sinks into the darkness for another night. And there's a mystery there. There is something there, a deep meaning there that you think you can put your finger on and verbalize, but you really can't. And you realize that. You realize that there is a mystery here that cannot be verbalized. It's just there. Meanwhile, there's a tranquil suchness about the moment in, and you want to keep with you forever. But over and beyond that, same time, we can't be futile. So, or everything. And sometimes it's best not to keep searching for the meaning of life and so forth. Matt Haig, who's a brilliant, says searching for the meaning of life, the meaning of how things are, is like searching for the meaning of toast. Sometimes it's better to just eat the darn toast and enjoy it. So one stops the quest for meaning after a while. The Tao.
Are we having some technical difficulties?
Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes. Welcome back.
And visible?
Yes.
And visible. So
Hey.
I've emerged from the ethers of the great Tao. But were you able to follow the first part of my lecture?
Most of it, yeah. Yeah, it just now started going out pretty.
Okay,
So
berserk. Okay, but now I'm back. Okay. No, so most of us tend to think in either or terms. You know, either true or false, either good or bad, either pretty or ugly. And Taoism doesn't think that way. In fact, Taoism says under heaven, people see beauty only because there is ugliness. There can be no good without bad. So there's a deep unity, not necessarily a fusion, but there is a deep connection, an underlying connection of opposites that that defies binary thinking, that defies either or logic, that defies our attempts at going this or that. And the two complementary opposites that Lao Tzu talks about over and over again are, of course, the yin and the yang. The yin being the female, the receptive, that which receives, that which in its seeming passivity is really the source of all strength. The yin is like water. And of course, Lao Tzu says the Tao itself is like water, which can wear down the hardest rock, the toughest rock, because a boulder, a rock, cannot stand up to gently meandering, flowing water going over it years and years and years and years. Eventually, the rock is worn down to mere sand and rubble. So yin is really a great force in nature, and the Lao Tzu is forever telling us, remain in the male by all means, but always stay anchored, always stay rooted in the inner female. If you want to put it in Jungian terms, it's the anima that's much more significant than the animus, though clearly both male and female are complementary and need to work together as a unity. Nonetheless, it is the female, it is the yin, it is the receptive that is primary. Now, of course, some could argue that the very concept of yin is sexist. The very concept of yang is sexist because it uses rather stereotypical associations of male with active. And that is true. Perhaps it's better to recast them rather than recasting them in gender terms, to recast them as principles of nature. So the yin and the yang would be sort of like negative and positive poles of electricity, having nothing to do with gender per se. Now that might actually eliminate that little controversy. Anyhow, the complementarity of opposites is something that is crucial to Taoism. A third feature, of course, is Wu Wei. Wu Wei. What's Wu Wei? Benjamin Hoff calls it the Pooh Wei, as in Winnie the Pooh. He actually wrote a book called The Tao of Pooh, where Wu Wei is explained as Pooh Wei. But be that as it may, Wu Wei, spelled W-U-W-E-I, Wu Wei is a state of letting go, being still, not doing. Now, not doing doesn't mean sitting on your butt doing nothing. It means doing what you can and then letting go, not striving, not toiling and spinning, in the words of the Gospels. We're not spinning around in circles. We're not toiling. We are simply working naturally in harmony with the Tao and then releasing, letting it be, and allowing things to settle themselves, you know? We need to talk too about this as a paradox. It's not, and paradox is rife. I mean, Taoism is rife with paradox because at every turn you encounter not simplistic definitions, not easy binaries, but rather complicated circuitous byways and pathways that can eventually lead us to the goal of a centered life. There's a wonderful saying in Zen, which is the child of Taoism. Zen Buddhism was influenced by the Buddhism that came in from India into China and then Japan, and also by Taoism. Sitting silently, not doing, again, Wu Wei. Sitting silently, not doing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. No matter what miracle grow you use, no matter what you do, you really cannot hasten, accelerate the arrival of the grass beyond a certain point. You know, and even if there are technologies that can do that, it's so much better to greet the appearance of the grass or to greet the appearance of that first flower in your potted plant at home and to say, what a miracle. This is wonderful. To allow nature to take its course, to let things simply be. And in line with this, and this is a very meditative saying that brings Taoism close to Buddhism, the Tao Te Ching advises us, empty your mind of thoughts and let your heart be at peace. Empty your mind of thoughts, let your heart be at peace. I mean, we're constantly chattering. There's so much external noise, you know, and I live in a country, for example, where you're bombarded with noise from all kinds of angles and ends. In some ways, it was sheer bliss during the COVID lockdown because it was ethereally quiet. Even the stray dogs stopped barking and there was no noise at all. So there's all that external noise, noisy motorcycles without silencers, stray dogs, firecrackers, bands, you name it, the procession of the world. And of course, there's a lot of inner chatter too. There's a lot of inner, constantly, will she marry me? Will he do this? How will I get money? I'm so broke. And so the mind keeps on manufacturing problems and situations to worry about, to fret about. And the point of the Taoist is saying is, why don't you just empty your mind of thoughts? Let your heart be at peace. Let the mud settle, and things will work out of their own accord. Now, again, let me emphasize, it doesn't mean that you don't work in harmony with nature. You do. You work very hard. But that's just work. It's not fretting. It's not being anxious. It's not toiling and spinning. That's the difference. That's the difference between Wu Wei and the way we, throughout the world, increasingly, normally operate. So now, the saying, which is also the title of my talk, muddy water, let stand, becomes clear. What does that mean? It means that you don't really have to fight the mud in the water. You don't really have to fight the mud in your life. If you could just take several deep breaths, calm down, perhaps feel a tinge of gratitude, and the beautiful lines that our friend quoted from Thich Nhat Hanh suggests that Han tells us to actually be grateful another 24 hours, okay? And to breathe deeply into that, and to then just let it be, to allow thoughts to fade. Perhaps the mud will settle. Perhaps a solution will occur to you out of the blue. In my case, it often does. I very seldom find solutions to problems when I'm all jangled and all worried and all bent out of shape and running here and there. But when I sit still, in that stillness, in that calm, in that allowing the mud to be, to let the mud settle, the water becomes clear. And the solution to the problem, or the way forward, the way I need to go, becomes much, much clearer to me as a result. And of course, during the question and answer session, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people who ask questions about all this, and I hope you do. There's a great story in Zhuangzi, actually a couple of stories, but I'll just leave you with one. And that is about Zhuangzi is a great Taoist sage in the tradition of Lao Tzu. And this is a story about the great master Zhuangzi, who was approached by a courtier at the palace, offering him a job from the king, from the emperor. And the emperor said, why don't you come to the palace and be my resident advisor? They say you're a very wise man. I could certainly use your wisdom here in Beijing. And Zhuangzi said, you tell His Majesty that in the imperial palace, there is a stuffed tortoise. It's a gilded tortoise, and it's stuffed, and it's been there for 700 years, and it doesn't move. And he pointed to a turtle that was a baby turtle that was finding its way through the mud, wriggling in and out. And he pointed to the turtle and he said, which would you rather be? The imperial tortoise or the turtle that's the mud? It was obvious that the turtle was that particular contest. It was a no-brainer because he would much rather be the turtle alive rather than and that illustrates a fundamental point about Taoism. Instead of titles, instead of
we having technical issues again? Yeah. Okay. Oh, hey, I see someone coming in the waiting room. Yay. I think we have them back. All right.
Can you hear me now? Can you see me?
Yes.
I'm here.
Yay, go for it.
Yay. Okay, good. Very good. I mean, this is wonderful. I mean, this is a kind of an object lesson in Taoism and in Buddhism. It's to stay calm, to allow the mud to settle, to, to not fret and climb the wall and claw it and say, raise my blood pressure and say, my God, what's happening? No. So in a sense, I am walking my talk and living my message. Okay, let's continue here. So Taoism has remember that it's also the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi, apart from preferring the live turtle to the dead imperial tortoise, apart from urging us to live in harmony with nature, to live simply, to empty our mind of thoughts and to allow our hearts to be at peace. It's also a manual of statecraft. It's also a manual of learning to live politically, humanly, spiritually. And one of the sayings that I really like there is, when the great Tao is lost and forgotten, goodness and piety appear. When there is peace in the family, when there is no peace in the family, filial piety appears. And may I add, traditional family values and other right-wing shibboleths appear at that time as well. So when the great Tao is lost, then you just have a parade of morality. You know, you have goodness, you have rules of what to do and what not to, of rules to be and ought not to be. So if you know, problem be living at very appropriately, you would be living out of a higher virtue that told you what to do. You wouldn't be, going around in circles looking for what is good and looking for abstract principles of what's right and what's wrong. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And this business about, if there's no peace in the family, filial piety appears. So here, yeah. And then when he says, when the country falls into chaos, patriotism appears. Can you hear me? Can all of you see me?
Yeah,
I hope
might
you
get
can.
better sound if you turn your video off. I think we're losing a little bit. That might be
Okay,
one way to help it along.
Let me stop the video here. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, so as I said, when the great Tao is lost, goodness appears. Now, what do I mean by goodness? I don't mean real goodness, whatever that means. And what the Taoists don't mean that either. The Taoists are talking about abstract principles of right and wrong, rather than just being very naturally in harmony with the Tao, knowing what to do. I mean, there are inner prompts that tell you what's good, what's appropriate in the moment. You don't have to live according to abstract principles of virtue and vice, good and evil. And then the wonderful passage, when there's really no peace in the family, filial piety appears and traditional family values appear. Dogmas appear, because if the family is crumbling, I want to present this facade to myself and the world that my family is really working. Can you hear me now, Beth? Yes?
Yes,
Okay,
we can hear you.
Good. So when the family is breaking down, there's this desperate attempt at convincing myself, most of all, but then also the world, hey, very truculently and defiantly, I've got a great family. We're going places. We are together. We are a unity, and so on and so forth. So filial piety appears, and not only filial piety, traditional family values. Then it becomes ideology. I don't really have peace in the family. I don't really have harmony with my parents and with my cousins and with my this one and that one. But I have to make it appear that family values are it. They are the bedrock. We need to go back to that. So, and here's the, going back to the ultra patriotism of the Trump years and the ultra patriotism that we find in other right-wing regimes in Hungary and India and so forth. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. I love that. I love that because if the country were okay, there would be no reason to thump one's chest and say, hey, we're the greatest. Make no mistake about it. And we don't want those foreigners here. And we don't want anyone who looks different than us around us. And we're going to send you to an internment camp. We don't have to say that if we are comfortable with ourselves and with our social, national, and personal values. It's only when there's a deep-seated insecurity, a deep-seated unease, that we fall into the trap of ultra-patriotism. So I thought that's a fairly interesting quote from Lao Tzu. And one of the things that we need to remind ourselves is that it's not a question of not rowing the boat. It's not just a question of floating along, allowing the water to carry you. It's a mix. It's a mix. Yes, you row vigorously, and then there's also a space for just resting on your oars and letting the water carry you. And I think this is really the spirit of Taoism. Any questions?
We're getting near time, so we'll keep them brief. But does anyone have any questions?
Let me start the video. Let's see if it works.
All right.
Let's hope and pray to the great Tao that it works. Without fretting or anxiety. Does it work?
That's right. You just got to go with it. We got to go with
it.
Yes.
No, so is the audio visual quality okay now?
It's breaking up a little when you turn the video on. It's starting to, but we'll see. Does anyone have any questions, any comments?
All right, we'll see.
We'll see. Anyone?
Wait.
I was gonna say, I thought Larry did.
Yeah, I do.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, Larry, go for it.
Well, of course, the symbol many of us acquainted with Taoism is the yin yang, and I've often I've often thought of that as how two very different people like Lee and I can be together for so many years and get along, that the yin ease the yang or vice versa. But can you comment on the yin yang, and then comment on how old Taoism is in relation to, say, Buddhism?
I will. Well, Taoism really goes back thousands of years if you're looking at the folk origins of Taoism. But as a religion and as a form of spirituality, it originated around the same time as Buddhism, and that is around the 6th century BCE. And it stabilized and concretized around the 4th century BCE. Now, on to the yin and the yang. As I said, it's a mistake to think of them as male and female. I think I think we all have yin and we all have yang within us. So I think we all have the receptive and we all have the active, the thrusting, the analytical within us. We also have the receptive, the right-brained, the intuitive, the imaginative within us. It's just a question of emphasis. And if you were brought up in a very macho family and you were encouraged as a male to reverse, it stands to reason that you wouldn't be encouraging your receptivity to come out, your right brain to come out, your imagination to flower, because you see poetry as something sissy, or you see reading or you know, enjoying something deviant. And so, yeah. And so you tend to freeze that aspect of yourself. And I think it's a great tragedy. And one of the reasons why there's been so much violence toward women, I think, is because a lot of men have not come to terms with their inner yin, with their inner anima, and they have very negative images of femininity inside them, and also very negative images of masculinity within themselves that cause them to lash out in pain and rage against female figures in their lives. So that's not a justification. It's an explanation, though, to some extent, of why men are so screwed up. Many men are, not all men are. Many men are screwed up because of that imbalance. Larry, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I mean, I'm sure that you could balance out yin and yang in a gay relationship or in any other relationship, you know, or harmony.
Yes. Absolutely. Gay doesn't matter what kind of relationship you're in. You can certainly apply yin and yang to all of them. And you can also apply yin and yang to yourself solo, because you have yin and yang within yourself. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and of course, when you were talking about yourself and Lee, but in any relationship of any kind, it's not just one partner's yin versus the other partner's yang. It's not that simplistic. It's the pairs of yin and yang in each, and how they interact with yin and yang in the other. And of course, that can be quite explosive at times.
Well, we share yin and yang.
You know. Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Can you still hear me, Beth?
You're going out. Raj, I hope you can hear us. We want to thank him for coming. If you can hear me, thank you for coming all the way from India and for all your technical prowess here, trying. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the video. But let me just say at the end, we appreciate Raj talking with us today very much. I'm going to go ahead and stop our video.